Everyone, welcome to SPSM Chat 3.0, Suicide Prevention, Social Media in the Hizzy. I'm Rudy Caseres. Our guest today, Dr. Jessi Gold, is going to talk about all the cool things that she's doing. We're going to talk about suicide, damn it. And, you know, that's going to be a heavy topic, but I feel like we have the most mature, at least on Twitter, the most mature, well-educated, following group community and all of social media. So I'm excited to get your feedback. If you're a college student, please let us know whether you're community college, just graduate student, even if you don't have any background in mental health, if you're a PhD candidate, please, we want to hear from you. I feel like this is the least research I've ever done for a show, specifically because I've lived through it.
Sure.
So without further ado, let's go around the square table and we'll have our hosts introduce themselves first, and then we'll go to our guest of honor. So first, let's go to Marie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marie Shanley, better known as Mxiety. I am a mental health focused streamer on Mixer. So what I do is I have conversations on mental health related topics. My background is in research. And so either we're interviewing somebody, sharing their story, or we're having a guest on who's a professional in the field, or maybe somebody sharing their story, or we're playing video games and talking about mental health, or we're just talking about mental health based on current topics. So come on by if you haven't yet. And I'm here on Sundays. So that's that.
Yes, and let's see. We already got some people in the comments. Hello from Periscope. Hello, Sweet Juice is now following. Great. Love the Mixer following. Of course, you're probably here because of Marie, and that's totally fine. Okay, she is wonderful. And I can't thank you enough. I know this is off topic and we're running out of time, but Marie makes all the awesome graphics that you see on all the social media. So I really want to give her a shout out for that, because Lord knows I don't want to do it.
Oh my God, it's no big thing.
Yeah. Hey, Krista Marie, our fearless Twitter chat moderator. I appreciate you as well. Hey, Danielle Glick, who is one of our other SPSM Chat co-hosts. I appreciate you. Feel free to let us know that you're here, no matter on what platform we are currently on. Facebook.com/SPSM Chat, YouTube.com/SPSM Chat, Mixer.com/SPSM Chat, and of course, our home base, Twitter.com/SPSM Chat. Without further ado, let's get to our second co-host, because we're not going to. I forgot about you, Hudson.
Hi, I'm Hudson. Thanks for remembering me. Recognize me from such episodes on SPSM as Mark Hennick. My name is Hudson Harris. I'm a mental health strategist. I work with communities and organizations, governments, providers on how to design better systems for behavioral health. And I have a pick who you will see later during the Hamlet time minute or so.
Awesome. And without further ado, and someone said I have a big black blob on my face. If any of you
do.
We do. Christ. I tried to tell you about it, but you said before the show.
Okay, well, what I'm seeing is what you're not seeing. Let's see. Does that help?
Yes.
Jesus Christ, that's so weird. That's going to be such a mind fuck, because what I'm seeing is my external webcam. So
I was trying to tell you. I was like, is it okay that half your face is covered? And you're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay.
I'm in the witness protection program. It's for my own privacy. Okay, without further ado, thank you for ever called me out on that. I'm sure that'll look great in the replay. Who is, not Krista Marie, who is Jessi Gold?
Hi, I'm Jessi Gold. I have my whole face in view for everybody who is looking. I'm an assistant professor of psychiatry at Washington University in St. Louis. For my clinical stuff, I mostly see college and graduate students at the HABIF Health and Wellness Center, which is the student health on campus. I also write freelance for a bunch of places, like Self and InStyle are the ones you'll probably see me write for most frequently. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. Jessi Gold. That's a brief summary of me.
Okay, so without further ado, let's go to our first question, because it is already that time. And first off, if you're just joining us, this is SPSM Chat. The topic is how college life might lead to suicide, with guest Dr. Jessi Gold and, of course, co-host Marie Mxiety and Hudson Harris at Mental Strategy on Twitter. I'm Rudy Caseres. Question number 1, and that is a doozy. What are the factors that can lead a college student to suicidal crisis? Let's go with Dr. Gold.
All right, I'll take the first crack at this. This is a big question. So if you look at the data, you can tell that kind of suicide is trending up in everywhere, but especially in the college age population. I'm grateful that you guys wanted to have this chat because it's often a neglected group. We talk a lot about kids and we talk a lot about adults, but we tend to forget about the transitional age group, which is like 15 to 24, but you can be in graduate school for a lot longer than that. So it's a pretty big group of people. So while we know that suicide's increasing, I would say the data on exactly why is mixed, and people just kind of give hypotheses to what that is. So I would say, first of all, every big transition comes with added stress. So we know like transitions like divorce, marriage, new school, anything is going to cause more stress. So it's a new environment. It's going to stress existing conditions. So I think mental health has become more readily diagnosed and more readily treated in younger kids. So when they're coming into college, they already have mental illness in a good majority of them. A lot of the people I see are really just transitioning care to me. But when they land on campus, they're taking care of it themselves and they weren't doing that before. Or there's new stressors like school's a lot harder than high school was, or socially it's a lot harder than high school was, or you don't get alone time. I think that's a big thing. So everything in college is like someone lives in your dorm, or you eat with people, or you go to these big classes and you're just really not able to kind of control your life as much as you might have been like at home in your own environment with your parents. I would say all of those things can contribute to kind of any sort of mental health decompensation, which doesn't just have to be depression, as suicide is more of a symptom than a actual disorder and can go with many things. Then the age at which people go to college is the age that you start to see things like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia come out. So that also could contribute, because you could go into college with very different mental health than you come with when you start to have those symptoms develop. Then I would say substance use is pretty common in college. So with that comes impulsivity, less frontal lobe management of saying no when you're thinking about these things, more likely to act on them perhaps because of the substances, which is what the data would say. So that contributes. And then other things in college like financial stress. So the financial situation is really expensive. College is open to more people, which I think is really awesome. But I wouldn't say that we necessarily are super great at catching them when they get there. So you might be coming from a different country, or you might be coming from a very different socioeconomic background than the other people in school with you. And that's fantastic. And I'm so glad college is open to so many people, but I don't think we catch their mental health as well because of that. And then there's obviously then like a delay in care because of like sort of symptoms of mental illness, like not sleeping, not eating, being stressed out or something, might be more like badges of honor in college, but might just be like normalized in college. So if you're not sleeping because you have a bunch of tests, that feels normal. So it might not be a warning sign as much. And there's still stigma, obviously. So you're delaying coming to get care. And that might also lead someone into what you guys termed a suicidal crisis. And I'm sure social media also plays some sort of factor there. There's a good amount of evidence on that, increasing at least bullying and some suicidal thoughts. There's a really good book called What Made Maddie Run, which is about a runner who was at Penn, which is where I did my undergrad, who committed suicide, and sort of the book is about the role of Instagram and this like curated life that people have on Instagram, and how that could kind of mess with what you're actually feeling and what you're seeing everyone else doing. So I think that's a whole nother topic that fits in there. So I think I listed like 10 different reasons, but I think it's a very complex thing that we don't have like one cause for, as we wouldn't for pretty much anything with mental illness, but particularly in this population, there are lots of different factors.
You know what I love about having clinicians on is that we usually talk about people like me, talk about our own lived experience and use a lot of terms, like layman's terms. Whereas when we have clinicians on, they talk about frontal lobes, and that's always fun. So,
I just threw that in there. I don't talk about the brain that often. I just was like, that's what it's doing.
we need more frontal lobe. There needs to be a whole SPSM chat about frontal lobes, and it's just going to be all Dr. Jessi Gold. So I appreciate that. Let's hear from Marie.
So for me, college was the time where I finally got therapy for what I suspected was probably a depression that started at least when I turned like 14, like sometime in my teens. But in college was the first time where I was independent and I had the ability to make my own decisions. And that kind of just broke me because I had lived under a very like tightly controlled family, and they determined everything that I did and who I saw and who I didn't talk to, and so having that freedom in college was very jarring. And then I took on my student debt. And somebody mentioned that in chat, that student debt is a big issue. And indeed it is. So knowing all the financial stuff that was going on, that really stressed me out. And kind of what put me over the edge is that my roommate was not great. And I was not able to sleep because of her. And that set me over the edge. And that was the first time I had a flashback. But I also am very grateful for the fact that I went to college, because I don't know how I would have received my first therapy appointment otherwise, because I wasn't open to it after the experience I had in high school. And so after that event, I sat down and I was able to talk to a therapist. And so that kind of answers your question, kind of doesn't, but I thought I would talk about my experience as why I definitely think it was because this was the first time I was independent and away from my oppressive family. And that kind of snowballed and created an effect of everything else.
Well, you've heard from what Dr. Gold has to say. You've heard what Marie has to say. But I think you all want to know, what does Hudson Harris, what amazing arm tattoos, by the way, has to say about, the question again is, of course, what are the factors that can lead a college student to a suicidal crisis? And I also appreciate everyone leaving their own comments, both in the live stream, but also on Twitter. I'm going to get to you very soon, Twitter audience. Go, Hudson, go.
So I agree with what Dr. Jessi said and what Mxiety said. And I can talk ad nauseum about my stressful college experience, but I wanted to actually comment specifically on something that Grace Durbin said in the chat, which is talking about the average age range of students kind of limiting research and specific insights into what different populations are going through. I've been working on trying to get a college mental health project off the ground for quite some time, and have learned it's not just about ages, but it's also about the research into the specific cohorts within the ages. I did some peripheral work with some historically Black colleges, with the historically Black college, with the research I worked on, and it was tremendously eye-opening to learn that a lot of the norms that we see around college and mental health specifically are very tied to what's being researched at the NIH. And so when you dug into some of the stigma issues, some of the cultural issues, it was vast. And getting into communities of color, you found that stigma was a lot of times higher. People more alone and more distant from familial networks. So I think it's kind of a confluence of all of those things. The research doesn't really support a lot of what we need to know about this. And then I think that we haven't really done a very good job of digging into college lives and college research about this from 15 to 30 or so. Plus, I personally continued through education until I was 30 or so, 29. So it was a while. But yeah, that's my thought.
I guess the real question is, back in college, was Hudson higher?
Was I what?
So let's take it to question number 2. Actually, before we get to question number 2,
Out of order. Was I what?
let's keep moving forward, please. Hey, Katie, how are you doing? Dr. Katie Gordon says, health struggles, financial struggles, lack of social support, lack of access to proper mental health care, severe stressors, and this is, of course, in response to question number 1, which is on the screen right now. I appreciate you, Dr. Gordon. Ashley J says, financial stressors and debt, working well in school, competing in a sport well in school, double majoring in college, difficulty making friends, unstable housing, or difficult roommates, limited to no access to food. Krista Marie says, also, I'm currently an online student in my 2nd year of undergrad. Best wishes with that. Lord knows I couldn't do that. Ashley says, yes, it's important to point out if you're having physical health struggles because it's definitely going to affect the mental health. Grace says, it feels like the average age range, which for college students, in other words, the stigmatized age range of college students limits research to a specific and inaccurate read of what might impact most college students. It's okay. It's okay, Katie Gordon, for not putting hashtag SPSM. You personally are forgiven. Everyone else, no. Use the hashtag SPSM. You know what to do. It's the right thing to do.
You're very spicy tonight.
I agree.
I know.
I agree.
Okay.
Very spicy.
Yeah, hot.
Question. You're going to get more of that. This is the new Rudy Caseres. Question
Who's
number 2.
taking nothing from no one.
Even when they're not giving it, he's not going to take it. He's just
You know what? Shut up, Hudson. We're going to question number 2. How can mental health professionals best support college students in distress? Let's go to Hudson.
Right back to me. Here we go. So again, this is actually, I was really excited about this episode because of the work I've been trying to do in the college mental health space. I think one of the best programs I've seen is at UCSD called College Mental Health. And they work with a specific subset of the student population. It's either self-identified or at risk. There's a bunch of different ways to get into it. I think some of these innovative programs that are proactively reaching out and trying to find college students that are pre-crisis are really good. I think when you get down to specific professors, I think I'll go back to like one of my closing thoughts from a couple of weeks ago. It's active listening. Like whether professors like it or not, you are the ones who are in the place of trust and authority, and students will inevitably come to you. And if you're doing something other than active listening and trying to support them through these things, you're going to create and exacerbate crises. Like I still remember from college, good professors and bad professors, and I'm sure that people have a ton of horror stories about those. The good professors listen, the good staff members listen. They are there to help build a sense of community and familial belonging with students that helps kind of reduce some of those issues.
Marie?
For me, the most important thing that I think that, especially in the times we're living in right now, I feel like professionals in general need to be in touch with just the zeitgeist of what's going on with college students. And I see this a lot with, like, I've had to explain to my therapist what streaming is, like live streaming. And that's a big aspect, right, of a lot of college kids do that. And understanding Instagram and Facebook and how all those things run and how they can affect how we feel. I feel like that is all crucial stuff. And in some cases, therapists that I've talked to are out of touch out of that, and they still could provide a sympathetic, input into that. But that's very different than offering insight and offering solutions that are very specific to, maybe a social media platform or just generally something that's happening in the cultural zeitgeist that might be concerning to the student.
Dr. Gold? Do you prefer Dr. Gold or Dr. Jessi?
Whatever you want to call me is fine. You can also not say doctor, but I appreciate that you have been. I appreciate that last answer because it gives me permission to stay on social media and keep watching television because I keep telling myself it's for work. So now I know that it is.
Oh, it totally is. Totally.
But besides staying up with stuff, I mean, I think that as a mental health professional on a college campus, some of what we need to do is not just wait for people to come to our office. So I think we have to spend a lot of time doing outreach, educating different people. That could be students, but also could be the people who are going to be the ones that students turn to first. So coaches and teachers and RAs, and sometimes colleges have like peer support network kind of places where you can call. So spending a lot of time doing outreach and really talking and seeing what's going on from there, why people might be hesitant to actually go get help at the student health center, educating about warning signs and when to seek help, trying to destigmatize it. And then on top of that, I think really understanding what the student health center can do and what they can't do. So there's a ton of if you read the articles in the newspaper lately, there's a long wait to see a lot of college counselors and college psychiatrists. And a lot of that is kind of out of the hands of the people who are doing the care, and really hurts us to be putting people in wait lists and not being able to see everyone. So I think we really need to have better models of care in this population, and we need to be better at referring people earlier if we really can't see them, and kind of trying to get people in earlier where we can, and trying to be creative about that as well. And I think that's something that falls on us, but also falls on kind of the greater community of trying to figure out how best to serve this population and make sure everybody who needs help is getting it.
Now, Dr. Gold, we've had a couple comments, several comments from a few different awesome individuals about online education, where you're probably not going to get nearly as robust mental health care services, at least provided by your institution. So can you talk a little bit about that? What have you heard from people who are primarily online students looking for mental health care?
It's a really good question. I don't have a ton of experience with that. My guess is, I mean, I don't know if anybody is in charge of their health at all when they're on online school. If there's the dean's office or someone at least helps them with something, or they're just supposed to manage all of their stuff alone where they are. That seems very challenging, and I don't envy that. I think probably we need to do a better job of figuring out how to do telepsychiatry in those groups, or telehealth in general. So trying to find ways to incorporate counseling that way, and then maybe trying to make some kind of contract with some of those schools so they're available for people who are doing online counseling, or doing online schooling. I think that makes sense to me. Otherwise, you kind of end up in this trying to figure out how to find help thing, which is no good for any population because it's very frustrating, and you end up just searching through insurance lists that are outdated and Psychology Today that can offer as much as it can offer, and paying for it out of your pocket, which you are already not having. So I think that sounds like an area that people should be doing more work in, and we need to be causing more of a stir around. It sounds like if everybody's bringing that up.
Yes, and I definitely agree with you. And I want to know a little bit about your own college experience while we have a couple free minutes. Just what was your mental health like? What helped? What didn't help?
Me?
Yes, specifically you. No one else. Hudson, do not butt in.
I was just checking. College was hard. I was the youngest of four. I went to boarding school before I went to college, so the actual transition to college was not that difficult. But what was difficult was I wanted to be a doctor, and everything had to be perfect. So I think I didn't do very well with pre-med classes. I found them very challenging, as most people will tell you that are somewhat normal and physicians. They are really stressful environments. People are very competitive. People lie and tell you they don't know the answers to things when they do, or don't share things with you when they want to. That was really hard. I came from a school that was very collaborative in high school, and even though it was hard, people weren't like that. So I think it took them adjusting to that. I actually ended up finding humanities as a way to stay sane. I was an anthropology major. I really liked that. It's probably why I know how to write, and it helped me balance the two. And I think I've been interested in and appreciate the role of counseling in everyone's lives. I remember going to try to even just talk to a counselor in college and being told that I wasn't sick enough to be seen on campus, and feeling very frustrated by that, because while even in my role now, I understand why they tell certain people to go off campus or not. I remember feeling very like I'm young, like I'm a sophomore. I've never even gone to get help before, and you're like kicking me off campus right away. This is not great. So I think that's part of why I do what I do. I felt like it was not the best situation, and it still needed improvement, and it still needs improvement. And I ended up kind of bouncing around therapists for a while, and through residency too, we're encouraged to go get help, as we should be, and even just to have better insight into the things that affect us as clinicians. And I think when you're in that situation, you can see what it means to actually relate to someone and feel like understood. And I completely understand where that like know what Instagram is, know what Twitter is kind of feeling comes from, because it can feel somewhat like you're being judged if someone's just kind of like out of touch and old. And it doesn't just mean age, I just mean kind of like their vibe. So I don't know if that answers your question completely, but I think that as an overachieving human, having the support of friends and family, but also needing the additional support at times. Like I felt college wasn't as supportive in the professional sense as it could have been, and definitely needed something that wasn't there, and hope to be that person for other people.
No, it's definitely much appreciated that you shared, because there might be people watching who are thinking like, oh, you're a clinician, you got all these letters at the end of your name, and like you don't know what it's like to suffer like me. So it's important to have that frame of mind to refer to that you have struggled in the past, and it doesn't matter what kind of background you go through, life can be very, very difficult. So I appreciate you giving a little bit insight into your own mental health journey. Before we get to question number 3, let's just go through a few more comments to question responses to the question number 2. Ashley J says, I definitely needed more support in college, but sadly I couldn't get it. This shouldn't be happening to any college student, and I hope it still isn't. Spoiler alert, it most likely still is, unfortunately. Ashley also says, money along with double majoring and being a part of a competitive speech and debate team increased my distress in college. My school limited the number of times you could see a mental health professional before you had to pay out of pocket, with no insurances accepted. That's bonkers, because I was fortunate enough. I thought all other campuses where it was free, come anytime you want, drop in, drop out. I was able to see a therapist once a week, every week, even during like winter break. So it's very, very sad that this is happening to not only Ashley J, but many others. Hey, Dr. William Schmitz-Bott, who's apparently following Hudson Harris. That's awesome. He's very psyched. Krista Marie says, I recognize the amount of stress they're under. Validation is huge. Listen to them. Don't assume that your experience is the same as theirs. Pay attention. See if there's anything else that we need to. Jen, who I think is tweeting for the first time tonight, says, believe what they are saying. Don't minimize or compare. Fight for systemic changes. Don't pathologize what is clearly a response to overwhelm and socially constructed stressors. You hear that all out there. Again, Amelia Letzo says, again, MIA as a current college student, I am studying for my hashtag criminology course. Love to you all. Smart cookie as well. Amelia, you are appreciated nonetheless. Hey, Joelle Marie, who's another co-host. I appreciate all the comments. Sadly, I cannot get to all of them, but thank you, Katie Gordon, for sharing the article you wrote, How Can Professors Help Students with Mental Health Issues? Okay, so question number 3, and that is, what are some effective classwork accommodations that are specific to people with mental health challenges? And this is important for me because this is something that I really advocated for. I was a president of my Active Minds chapter, and I'm like, if we accomplish anything while I'm president, is that we are going to make sure that we expand accommodations for people with mental health issues, because usually it's very standard, you know, get a little extra study time or different room. but some people, their brains just function differently. Sometimes they can knock it out of the ballpark with a verbal exam and just can't do even a multiple choice exam. So I want your thoughts specifically first, Dr. Gold, and then we'll go to Maria and then Hudson.
Yeah. First, I just wanted to comment on some of the things that Twitter people were saying. So I feel like when I was choosing to go into this field, people were like, I'm going into working for the worried well, and I'm not helping the people that really need help. And I just want to say that I completely understand how much people are going through as college students. And I've never felt like that. And every time I talk about college students, I'm very it's very important for me to point out that while people might appear to be quite resilient and quite functional in like academics, it doesn't mean that they didn't come in with their own struggles and that they don't have their own struggles that deserve to be validated and treated just the same as anybody else's. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that. In terms of accommodations, so I don't end up doing accommodations, but I do a lot of letters for them and sort of let the disability office decide what that means that people ask for and get. You're right. A lot of people are getting extra time on tests or like a delay in assignments and having to turn them in. Or I know a lot of people that have ADHD end up getting these like recording pens that they can bring into class and it records and then it transcribes, which is pretty cool. And sometimes they can have note takers, and that's really helpful for people. And it can be different for different classes or different needs. All of those are really important. And I think the things that I've noticed that are most important with accommodations are that like the teachers really need to validate people's experiences and realize that saying you need help or writing a teacher an email and saying you were like depressed all weekend and were unable to do work is not something that's very easy for someone who is in college and not wanting to affect their academics at all. So like really appreciating that that was really hard for them to do and that they're not lying and that they need support seems to be one of the things that I really hope to see and wish to see and hope that professors are listening to. And then in terms of what the students are thinking, I really hope that they realize it's not a failure to ask for accommodations. So I often feel like when even with students with ADHD that are very much struggling with getting stuff done on time and finishing tests on time, I have to be like, have you thought about getting accommodations? And they're like, why would I do that? I don't need that. I'm fine. My grades are fine. I'm fine. And you're like, well, it just might be easier for you. It might help. It might be something that could make a big difference. And I think realizing it's not a failure to ask for those things, that those things exist to like make your life better, not necessarily to cheat the system, which I think is what people think they're doing, is really important. And so I hope that if you're a student watching and you're having challenges like going to the disability officer, going to your therapist or psychiatrist on campus and asking for help and seeing what kind of things you can get, and that might make a huge difference and take the load off, is really, really important.
Now, do you ever hear from instructors who roll their eyes and are like, really? Come on. Like, we all have mental health. Like, we all get depressed and anxiety. Suck it up. Like, you're going to go into the real world and you're not going to be able to handle the day-to-day stressors of the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't get
Yeah.
direct like responses, right? Because I'm not the one sending the emails to professors as much. It's coming from the disability office, but I hear from students a lot, and it depends on, I would say sciences are notoriously bad for this. Engineering, especially, it ends up where the student's like, well, I told them, and the way they responded was like kind of, well, suck it up, deal with it. Everyone else has this, like, you just have to do your work. That's what you're here for. How are you going to survive a job if you can't survive this? And that doesn't help, obviously. It's completely invalidating. And on top of it, it's really quite hard for people to ask for help in general. So it's not just invalidating of like their future experiences, it's completely invalidating of like how they're feeling now and just makes them way, way worse. So hopefully that's not going to be an issue with every teacher, and that people are becoming more aware of these things because students are talking about it more. But I definitely think there's more of like depends on where you are and how old school and what specific subject you're studying. But I do think like it's still definitely a problem.
What say you, Marie?
The reason I say is because, first of all, I think Dr. Gold handled the question very, very well. And from my sense, I didn't take advantage of anything. I was very, I believed that accommodations were available, but I refused to receive a diagnosis, which means that I could not be accommodated properly. If you're not diagnosed, then they don't know what to accommodate you for. And I like going back, I wish I had done it differently, because there are certain things that just were so hard for me. And then I was so hard on myself for, because I couldn't do something that I thought somebody else was doing with such ease. And instead of being like, oh, okay, that was my ADHD brain, like that's totally okay and totally normal, and here's how somebody can help you with that, I just went, suck it up, and would go to the therapist. And like you, Rudy, I went to the therapist once a week, and I took advantage of that fully. And I'm so grateful, especially I had no idea that people are having such a hard time in their wait lists. And like, that's all blowing my mind. So I did take advantage of that, and that was all very helpful. But in terms of accommodations I could have used, the thing that Dr. Gold talked about that really struck me is being able to tell a teacher, like I just did not give myself permission to be able to tell a teacher that something was wrong. And in particular, I remember one time I submitted an essay, and I had written it during the day. Like it wasn't like a 2 a.m. delirium or I was drunk or something, or like nothing like that. I worked on it very hard. I remember editing it. And then the teacher presented it to me and said, "What happened?" And I was reading the essay in the office, and I was like, I have no idea. It made no sense. Like it was written in a different language. I don't even know. And I looking back, I remember I was overstressed and I was doing 14,000 things at once, but I refused to tell anybody that I couldn't handle something, because I didn't want somebody to tell me, oh, you're just stupid. Oh, you just can't handle this. You don't belong here. And so I just pushed forward, and I regret that.
What say you, Hudson?
I agree with Mxiety. I think back to my college days, and I had not gotten the help I needed for things I was battling. And I had suffered from a lot of stigma and did not really get the help that I needed. It wasn't really until, I went to college when Napster was big. So that was like 2000. I would say that it wasn't until I was law school that I went and actually started to get the help that I really need, medication-wise, therapy-wise. It's just the environments don't support it. And I think if you're looking through the comments and from the different platforms, whether it's stress, whether it's drinking, whether it's, poor research, any of those things, colleges are, it's the whole thing is it's this humongous confluence of every possible thing that could set you up for failure. And you're just supposed to succeed. And then add to that in high school, you don't generally have to advocate for yourself. I think that this is one of the components with it too, is that we don't generally teach a lot of kids about how to advocate for themselves, advocate for what they need in high school. And then you get to college, and I remember I saw my freshman advisor, sorry if you're watching, I doubt you are, once or twice.
Hey, we got a lot of viewers on SPSM Chat, okay? It's the hottest thing going today.
It is. The host is quite spicy. But I think that there's that advocacy piece that I think is part of that transitional key that kids miss. I remember getting to college and being like, great, I got my schedule and I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to do this. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't take underwater basket weaving more than once. But there were certainly classes I took, activities I participated in that a little bit of hey, how are you going to really achieve this and go through this? And I knew I needed accommodations in my head, but it was the same thing that I think Mxiety said, I can do it. I don't need help. I don't want to get help. Those types of things. That's the insidious stigma. That's the self-defeating behavior.
Honestly, if I had the right accommodations, I'd have my honorary PhD by now.
Yeah.
So Let's go to question number 4. We need to catch up on time. Should a student experiencing suicidal thoughts take an academic leave? And let's go back to Dr. Gold, and then we'll go to the comments. I know people are on Facebook too. Don't worry, I see you. But also the Twitter chat as well. You are all equally my babies. Dr. Gold.
I just wanted to echo something Hudson said before I went forward, which was that we don't teach people to advocate for themselves when they're younger. So I felt like I was at a significant advantage having been in high school, like away from my parents. And like, even when I had like a physical illness, I had to figure out how to cope. They don't teach you any of that when you're young. Even if you already have mental illness, like your parents are the ones often like going and getting your prescriptions and making sure they're always there. So I can't tell you the number of people who I prescribe something for that don't get refills and don't know how to get refills and often just run out and are like, sorry, I was out of them. And you're like, well, did you go get a refill? And they're like, or did you ask me for a refill? And they're like, well, they were out. Like it just, nobody told them how to do that. So that was always very surprising to me. So I just want to say, like, that's something, if I was a parent watching this, like I would try to start prepping your kid for transitioning and advocating for themselves before going to college, because that's just super important. But to answer your question about leave, so leave's super complicated. It depends on the person. It depends on what's going on. It should not feel like it's forced, but there are times at which it should be highly encouraged. There are definitely a couple of schools that have been sued for quote unquote forcing someone to take leave. And that's a very like legally complicated issue. But I do think that there are times that you will see that people don't want to give up the academic part because it's so much of their identity, but they're struggling so much. And like the added stress of the academic piece is not helping. But it's often hard to see that. Like they can see that they're not being social, or they can see that they don't feel good, but see if they're still getting good grades, which often in this group like ends up going last. They're like, well, I don't need to miss school. I'm doing fine in school. But like, it's adding stress. They just might not see it. So I do think it shouldn't be a never option. It should be a sometimes option. If other people are suggesting it, there's probably a reason. It's not because they think that you can't cut it. I think if you're suicidal, like being suicidal is super common. We don't talk about that because that seems scary to people, but lots of people have suicidal thoughts. Not lots of people attempt, and not lots of people intend on acting on those thoughts. So I think if they start to become super like increasing or becoming scarier to you in terms of like, that's not what I usually think, or I've never thought that before, or now it comes with a plan and now I really want to carry it out. Like those kind of things, like you should be going to get help more urgently for sure. If not going to the emergency room, depending on how severe. In terms of taking leave, like, it kind of depends on how consistent they are. I often worry from my perspective, medication takes a really long time. It's my least favorite thing to talk to people about, but I mean, antidepressants, if you look at the studies, take 6 to 8 weeks, kind of, but that's like to see if one dose worked, let alone like trying different medications or trying different doses and things like that. And if you're on a college schedule, your time is completely based on when you have exams. So you have midterms and you have finals. If you come to see me in midterms, which you can watch my schedule, it's very obvious. If you come to see me in midterms, like maybe we get one dose and a little bit of an increase before finals. So if you're really, really sick, it's going to be really hard for at least my part of the job to do very much before it would change anything for you in the immediate future. So I think like also being mindful that like taking a semester to like take care of yourself is okay, because things don't work very quickly. Even if college works very quickly, is something to think about.
Or if you're like me, take 5 years off. What say you, Marie?
So I know somebody who ended up taking time off, and I know somebody myself who ended up having to drop. My suicidal ideation got so bad that I had to drop classes. And it was conveniently how it works in college is that if you don't drop classes within like 4 days or something absurd, if you drop it on like the 5th day, you lose half of the tuition you paid for that semester. And so that was that was a lot more stressful than if I had had somebody gently guide me to maybe take off a full semester. But as discussed previously, I clearly was incredibly stubborn in trying to prove something to an unknown deity. I still don't know who. But I same way, I ended up having to take leave instead of taking it on my own volition, and planning it. And I wish I had planned it. But should students, I mean, that's 100% up to every individual and doing what's right for you. And if you are making the same mistake like I did and you're pushing yourself through, I hope you listen to this and maybe hear something and go, maybe I don't need to push myself through the semester. Maybe I'll take the semester off, get a little bit of help, or even just take the time off to work full time, whatever it might be, and then just get my bearings. But you might be also as stubborn as me and just say, nope, I'm ready and I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this the hard way. And that's fine too. But either way, it's definitely 100% an individual decision. And I also hope that it doesn't end up coming down to like parents forcing kids to do that because they think they know what's better for them, or vice versa, parents forcing kids to stay because they've paid for the tuition and they won't have any of this weakness or whatever it might be. So I just hope that we have the opportunity for every person to be able to choose on their own volition what they should do with their education.
Hudson, and let's hold the piggy update for the end. I know
I'm just sitting here with my bulldog.
Okay.
So I'm 37 years old, and I took the first real break that I've ever taken since I got my first job at Hastings in Texas at 14, when I left my last work. And I took off probably maybe 2 or 3 months, and I did some light stuff around what I was trying to build for my own business. But I just took the time off, and I realized 37 years old, and that's the longest I've ever actually been off. Like all the things that Mxiety you just talked about, like your parents and all the pressures at school and all that stuff, like that's all real. That's all, I get that there are kids that are out there that are more astute, that are more able to advocate for themselves and do these things. That is the vast minority of kids. And like, if there's one thing that like I could go back and tell myself, tell some of the friends that, went down much darker paths, is that take a break, just rest, like give your brain, give your heart, give your soul time to breathe. College is going to be there. Like it was there for me for a long time. And then that's cool. Like it's going to get there. Like waiting a year, this perception that we have to hurry up and get there is a complete farce. Take the time, whether it's now and you're, 18, 16, 15 and in college, or whether you're 35 working on a grad degree or undergrad degree. Like if you feel that stress, look at me, trust yourself and take a break, because it's not worth what you're putting yourself through.
It is time for final thoughts. And in a rare occurrence, I'm going to go first. And that is, hopefully you can all say me. We need to not be afraid to tell people that college is not for everyone. Okay. I wish someone would have told me that earlier. I get it. Like 90% of people should definitely like get a master's degree. Like bachelor's degree is not enough in this day and age for most people. But for people like me who have skills such as public speaking and being on stage or what have you, they don't necessarily need any kind of degree, to be honest, to be successful. It's just I felt like all this pressure, like I would have teachers like make me swear to them that I would go to college and get a degree, and it almost killed me. I took a long time, years and years and years, to realize, well, maybe when I'm 60 or 70, who knows? But for now, I don't need to do this to myself. I need to find ways, of course, to make money, to have success, to be productive. But if that's not college, that's totally fine. What say you, Marie?
Oh my gosh, I cannot agree with that enough. There was so much pressure to go to school, and I'm grateful that I did, and I actually want to pursue higher education. I'm one of those people that wants to get a master's degree. But the pressure was immense, and it definitely didn't help. Whereas if I had taken maybe a year in between college and in between high school and college to figure it out, to learn a little bit more about the world, I think I wouldn't have gotten myself into as much debt as I did, because having finished everything, I was like, oh, I didn't need to spend as much as I did on college, because again, I was always trying to prove to someone something. But yeah, so, but on the other hand, I mean, if for somebody, I just hope that if for somebody that is their way of receiving the help that they need, then that's incredible. And there's something wonderful that's coming out of that. And if it wasn't for college, I wouldn't have taken my first like official psychology courses, and wouldn't have started this whole, like having heard certain comments from kids who were in class with me, that kind of probably set in motion where I am today. So, yeah.
Dr. Gold?
I have so many thoughts, but to be final, I mean, I think the biggest thing is if you feel like you're struggling, ask for help, and we'll do our best to help you. I think that I try really hard to be on social media and to be talking about this stuff because I feel like I'm not that intimidating of a person. And I think it's important for people to see that even if we went to all of this school, I'm not scary or intimidating or judging them, and I very much like value what they have to say and want to see them get better. So don't be scared of psychiatry. Don't be scared of going to a therapist. Don't be scared of talking to your friends if you need help, or your professors if they don't give you the responses you need. Try to find someone like in the student health that will. I know that it's a really frustrating process and it's not the same universally. And I know that I'm not everywhere and I can't say that everybody is like me, but I want to hope that we're trying to do better, and that all of us, like in our hearts when we chose to go into this, really do care. And if you keep that in mind when you approach it, hopefully we can help you get better.
How can we stay connected with you?
Oh, I'm always on Twitter. I'm at Dr. Jessi Gold on Twitter. I spelled Jessi, Jessi. And then all my website is just drjessigold.com, and you can always contact me through there as well.
But you're not tweeting while you're in session, to be clear.
I'm not, even though like some of my friends who are ER docs do not think I work enough because I seem to be on Twitter sometimes, but that's cancellations or note writing. My phone is very far away, as are my computer. I use like the old school yellow like notebooks to take notes.
Well, they're just hating. Okay, Hudson, last but not least, of course, give your final thoughts, but we will have a pity update as we do every time Hudson is on.
So here's my final thoughts. What you're doing now and what you're working towards is very unlikely to be the place that you are in 10 years. Don't try and find the perfect thing, the perfect job, the dream thing. For some people that works, and like that's great when it does. For the vast majority of people, you're going to change careers. You're going to change fields within your career. You're going to move around and do things, because as you get older and you get more experience, you're going to learn what really makes you tick and what works. So focus more about, are you doing things that bring you joy? Are they making you happy? Are they giving you that sense of satisfaction? I've had jobs where I can definitively say I wore a white hat every day to work, and they didn't make me happy. Not because the work wasn't good, but because it wasn't right for me. So just be gentle with yourselves. You've gotten this far. You're going to get through it, and you're going to continue to grow.
I think you know what to do now.
It's the Hamlet time. All right. So Hamlet this week, we are up to 16 pounds. We love carrots. Let's want to say hi. We learned how to dance this week. I'll post a video on Twitter of Hamlet dancing. He's had a very busy week. Lots of carrots, lots of lettuce, and he loves all of you. Say bye-bye, Hamlet.
Well, that's going to do it for SPSM Chat this week. Quick shout-outs again to Dr. Gordon, Grace Durbin, Krista Marie, Suicide is Different, Ashley Hudson, who's an awesome person. If I missed anyone else, I really, really appreciate you. Hey, Anne-Marie O'Brien, glad you can check us out by the end. I think that's it. So that's going to do it. Next week, we're already heading into November. Can you believe that?
Ah,
Next week, for an all-new SPSM chat with guest Mxiety, who is an awesome person who is a great human rights advocate, who is a Muslim advocate, is bipolar, author of the awesome memoir, which I've read and have a signed copy, Hell Dolls and Hyacinths. That is going to be fun. And it's been a pleasure. It's been fun, as weird as that is to say about suicide and college mental health. But that's the thing about SPSM Chat. We have fun. We talk about serious stuff. We really, really have meaningful conversations. We connect with people across social media, across Facebook, across Twitter, across YouTube, across Mixer. Hello to you all. Goodbye to you all. Until next Sunday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Hold your piggies close.
good night, everyone.